All right. So everybody, welcome to the Communication Studies Department Career Day, a collaboration between the Career Center and the Communication Studies Department. My name is Stephen Hammer, and I am a faculty member in the Communication Studies Department. Throughout the day, we've invited alumni to join us for conversations about their careers, to give you all insight into different career paths, industries, and to get advice on how to enter and thrive in these fields. Our guest today is a former student, Noah Caruso. Welcome, Noah.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Great to have you and see you again, Noah. Noah Caruso is a 2021 graduate from SJU with a major in communication studies, who works for Atlantic Records as a pop rock promotion assistant. Before this, Noah worked at WMMR in Philadelphia on the promotions team. While at SJU, Noah was an online editor for The Hawk and held internships at WRAT Radio 95.9 FM, the Stone Pony, and at NBC 10 in Philly. I'm really excited to welcome back Noah to Hawk Hill. I have a list of questions I will be asking you, followed by some Q&A from our listeners, both on Zoom and in person.
Sure.
So let's get started. We're going to begin with a series of career-focused questions. Noah, could you describe within your current role the core responsibilities and what a typical day or a week looks like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I work in the promotion department here at Atlantic. And when you work in promotion, you have to wear a lot of different hats. So your day to day, some of it may look the same, but it's usually going to look different most of the time. But honestly, it keeps it exciting. And, you just get to do a bunch of different things and kind of learn different things each day. So like I said, I'm in promotion, and I feel like that kind of has two sides to it. So the goal of our department overall is to really get our artists on the label, played on the radio. And by doing that, we work radio stations to hopefully move our songs up the chart. And by doing that, we build a relationship with the artist and the radio station. And at the same time, we're growing their fan base. We're gaining them more audience so that they're becoming more well-known from a radio perspective. And so there's two ways that we kind of go about doing that. There's a numbers kind of stat-based way that's more of the day-to-day. And then there's the kind of hands-on, on-site, kind of in the field form of promotion that sometimes, that's the kind of curveball, the wild card. And honestly, that's like the fun stuff that kind of, makes us do what we do. So the day-to-day kind of numbers stuff that we do, again, we're trying to push our songs at radio to get them played more than other songs. So, it's the music industry, it's a music business. Every little thing we're taking into account that the average music listener probably doesn't even think about. So most of you probably listen to your music on Spotify or Apple, and we're looking at, how many times a song is being streamed, where on a playlist is it sitting, there's ranks and things like that, and how many times somebody's Shazamming a song because maybe they don't know it. So the more times you Shazam a song, it means that you like it, and hopefully if it's high on a Shazam chart, which does exist, that means, more people want to know what that song is and, want to hear that song. So we look at so many different things across all different kinds of music platforms. And my role, at least from a day-to-day perspective, is to kind of bundle them all in different reports and compare and contrast our songs across all the other ones that are getting worked at radio to try and find our angle and push our songs and kind of, pitch and build a story that gets them played more. And, obviously the goal is to get a #1 record, which keeps the artist happy, it makes us happy. And, it starts to build a rep for the artist and, develop a relationship with radio that, wants them then to do events, which is kind of the second part of what we do, is more hands-on in the field, doing events. And that could be anything like a meet and greet with an artist, interview. I help set up Zooms. I actually did 2 today with 2 of our artists with radio stations so that they could air them live, and then, listeners and the audience gets familiar with them that way. We do contesting with artists and winners. And we do concerts, whether it be small kind of win your way in things, or we have, radio sponsored events at, venues like Wells Fargo or the Garden. So that's kind of the more hands-on thing that we get to do, is actually be on site with the artist and, helping them promote in person who they are, their song, and kind of build that relationship in person to complement the number side of it, that then, kind of it's just a full circle. So you can't really do one without the other. So the day-to-day thing is more report numbers based. And then, mixed in with that is the on-site event driven side of it too. So it's a healthy balance of both, and it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. How long have you been there?
I've been here about 2.5 years. I started the September of 21, so basically I went all summer after I graduated looking for a full-time job, and come this September it'll be 3 years. So it's been moving pretty fast.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Noah, how did you decide to pursue this?
I've always been a huge fan of music. I play a little bit myself, and I've just always loved it. Originally, when I was at St. Joe's, I mean, I graduated as a communications major, so I always knew I wanted something in that field. And then I kind of thought, well, what else could I pair it with? And originally, I came in thinking I was going to do sports marketing, and I was a sports marketing minor, and I thought I was going to merge the two together. After taking a few sports marketing courses, realized it wasn't for me, even though I'm still a big sports fan. But saw they had an entertainment marketing course, pivoted to that, started interning at more music-based internships and things like that, experiences, and really fell in love with it and thought, yeah, music is definitely where I want to end up. And I know Dr. Hammer just mentioned a little bit when he introed me, but I did some intern work at the live music space at venues like the Stone Pony. And, I did promotion there and production, and they really, it's a smaller venue, so they had us doing just about everything. And then when I was at MMR, which is the big rock station, literally right down City Ave from you guys, I was doing promotion for them, going out, helping run events. And I realized that that was, definitely more aligned with what I wanted to do. And when I saw an opening at Atlantic for radio promotion, I kind of had already had experience in both those things through interning. And I was involved with Radio 1851 on campus too. So that definitely helped just familiarize myself with everything. So it seemed like a perfect fit, and so far so good.
That's awesome. It's helpful, I think, to see that trajectory, of like often when advisees are in and they say, well, I want to do this, I say that's great, but keep your options open. And I think most of us end up following some path, trying something new, and then like understanding when that feels right, or that these paths sort of open up, and then getting involved. And that, I think, I'm grateful that you're talking about the ways that you got sort of involved in different things and tried different things out. More on your job, what has surprised you the most about your current job?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just, about my role and just music industry or business in general, is how much, it really is a business. Everything is, you're looking at everything, every little nitty-gritty detail is, I don't want to say it's not left to chance, but like it's there for a reason. Where a song is on a playlist, what's popping up on your TikTok, the song that's being used there, when a song plays on the radio, where an artist is playing on a tour, like every little aspect. It's not just a fluke, it's not luck. It's sometimes a hit could be luck, sometimes the public just responds to it well, but 99% of the time it's people on the other side or kind of in the background trying to push it and look at the numbers across everything that the average music listener has no idea. When you open your Spotify and you start listening to music, or you open a playlist, you're not really thinking about it. It's just what you want to listen to. Yet we're looking at everything that you're doing because it means something to us that then we could use for our story, for our pitch, to help, build and promote our artists. So just every little detail is getting looked at and is kind of accounted for. And it's something that I never thought about when I, would listen to music or anything like that. But now I'm a little more like if I Shazam a song, I'm like, wow, somebody's going to be looking at that because it's helping them somewhere. Or if you add something to your playlist because you like it so much, someone's using that for something else. So every little thing, it goes into what is the music business.
That's interesting. I think a lot of people could say that about their jobs is like, I think sometimes we approach our jobs as in content material, like as a professor, right? I'm thinking about being a teacher and being a researcher. But I think if you would ask me what surprised me most about my job in the first few years too, I'd say like, this is definitely a business. And I see how these, like an institution of a university is run. Sometimes that can be, sometimes that's the least fun part of our jobs, but it's true to realize how those things work.
Yeah, it's
Um,
eye-opening for sure. And even when I first started at one of my early internships, I learned that the DJ isn't actually playing the songs on the radio. And I was like, what do you mean? And that was kind of my first like eye-opening moment of it's the tip of the iceberg and there's a lot more to follow.
totally. So how did you talked about having a lot of internships during school, and a couple of early jobs. So you can interpret this or talk about whichever one you'd like. But I'm curious how you got your first internship or job, or sort of some stories maybe about that that could be helpful.
Sure. Yeah, I guess I'll go internship. And it was, when I came to St. Joe's being a comm major, I think the comm program was fairly new when I started or when I was a freshman, which was like 2017. So at first I wasn't too sure, what it entailed or what, how it would size up to anything else. But again, it seemed like it was the real deal and it was a good fit. And then pairing that with marketing, it just seemed like it was a good kind of unique opportunity. And then, I quickly learned down the street that you had NBC, ABC, and then not too far was CBS. So that was, those major networks also complemented the kind of a growing communications program. And my first internship was at NBC 10, which is right across from the Target on City Ave. They're in Center City now, but you could still see the building. But anyway, knowing that that was so close, I wanted to give that a shot too, to kind of see, okay, I'm learning about communications, but let me actually put it into action. And yeah, I was just kind of eager to learn outside the classroom and get some experience because, so many people tell you that that's what counts as much as what you learn. And I really just applied the old-fashioned way. I went on their website, like their portal, and I applied for their digital news team. At the time, and I still do like writing, but at that time I was considering kind of journalism too. And it seemed like a good fit. And, I had some prior work experience just I guess through high school, and some of it just so happened to kind of align with communications, and some of it was just good old fashioned, having a summer job or something like that. And but yeah, again, having that experience helped, I think, land that first initial internship that I really just applied like anybody else would. So many people think you have to know somebody or you have to be top of your class or something like that. You really just have to apply, and if you are already involved in some things that they don't have to be the exact thing that you're applying to, but if they align with it or, you just show you have some experience, it'll definitely set you apart from, other people that don't. So I think that early, early experience that I had definitely kind of helped set me up for then applying for an internship. And NBC obviously was a good start. And, I mentioned it earlier, like I came into this thinking I was going to do sports marketing, realized it wasn't for me. After my internship there, realized journalism and writing wasn't really my thing, but I definitely took skills from that then helped point me to where I wanted to go. So, um, yeah, I like to anyone that's trying to get an internship, just apply and just keep applying to a bunch. And, maybe the one you get isn't your dream internship, but if it's in the field that you're interested in and, you think you can take things away from it, just go for it and give it a shot. Worst comes to worst, you have something on your resume. So, yeah, I feel like I did a lot of trial and error and it helped me for better.
Yeah, and I don't know. I hate to say any job or internship market is a numbers game, but it sort of is, right? I've been on the hiring committee of faculty here, and I also got hired here barely. I can tell that story some other time, but like, it's I don't want to say it's a crapshoot and that like our hard work doesn't matter, but a lot of it is just what what you're doing and the experiences you bring, and just sometimes just the day that the people are having who are trying to hire somebody. So I think you're right. It's really about just going for things, seeing what's out there, um, and something will end up sticking. Um, um, what are some ways that your organization now, or your industry as a whole, Noah, are demonstrating a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like all of those things are what make up music. So in order to
Mhm.
work a diverse roster of artists, you need a diverse staff to do that, or else every record label would put out the same sounding song and every artist would sound the same and everyone would think the same in how they're gonna, you know, break an artist and make him the next big thing. So I think to understand where an artist is coming from, the kind of music that they're putting out there, you know, you need people that are diverse and everyone that has, you know, coming from different backgrounds, or else it's never going to work. You can't all think the same. And, you know, communications, music industry, it's all entertainment, it's all creative, whether your job has to do with pulling numbers or you know, being an A&R and finding the talent, like everything still flows through a creative, you know, company. And creativity is only good if you have a diverse team. If everybody's thinking the same thing, there's no creativity there. It's going to be all, you know, just bland. So yeah, I just really think when you look at music and you look at Atlantic's roster compared to maybe Warner's or Columbia's versus, you know, Epics or so many, whoever, like it's all so different because everyone that's working for them is so different. There's no two people in my department that are alike, let alone my entire company. So yeah, I think that it kind of just speaks for itself in that you can't think like with blinders on and only hire certain people. Like you have to bring in people from different backgrounds or else it's never going to work. And like your artists will know that too. You know, their songs maybe aren't going to be going the way they want, or they're not going to, you have to connect with your artists too. And if you can't bring in people that kind of speak their same language as them, then they're going to end up leaving and then you're never going to, you know, it's never going to work. So again, I just think that the core of music is it being so diverse. You know, I bet everybody in that room right now, well, if you all looked at your Spotify Wrapped or your favorite playlist, everyone's is going to be different. Like maybe you'll have one song. So yeah, I think it's just like it's the nature of what music is. It's just diverse.
All right, so let's get into some advice stuff. Here's a classic question. What's something that you wish someone told you when you were sitting here, when you were in school, when you were in college?
People and like it's just the age old like get involved and like it sounds so like you know corny and that everybody says it, but it's so true. Like again, everyone's going to graduate from here or any other school with a GPA and a degree, and both of those matter. But then it's your involvement, your work experience, all of that sets you apart from everybody else. So you know you need the education part of it to kind of lay the groundwork, but then you have to get involved. You have to find out what you like. One, it helps you understand what you like, and two, you know, it just one, it looks good on a resume, and you could talk about it in an interview because you know half these interviews, your employers or whoever's hiring you is going to want to get to know you, and what you're involved in is the best way to kind of speak on that. So just just get involved. And you know St. Joe's is so much, I don't even know what else they have now, but when I was there they had, you know, they had a record label. I don't know a lot of other schools that had you know, I said I was at Radio 1851. Looking back at it, I probably should have gotten involved in the record label early, but you know, those are two awesome things, and not everybody in here is interested in music, but you know, even you know, Greek life or sports or any, you know, there's business clubs. Just get involved with stuff that's at your fingertips because it's literally like it's so accessible to you. And then once you graduate, you don't have that anymore. So you just, again, you want talking points and you want things that you can get involved in and take initiative on. Like you may not think it's for you until you try it. So, you know, just take some risks and go for it. So many people like preach that. And, you know, I was involved in sports, Greek life, and radio when I was at St. Joe's. And, you know, it was three very different things, but all of them kind of offered their own unique talking points once I graduated and you know different experiences. So just get involved. And you know, kind of speaking on that too, somebody told me, I think it was in my first internship at NBC. I think it was like the president of news too. He said, when you make, when you're writing up, making your resume, don't put your education first. Put your work experience first. Education should go, honestly, he said, kind of toward the bottom. And I took that piece of advice because, again, he said that only does so much for you. Like that, it's really just your degree and your number, and a lot of people are going to have that, and um you have to kind of prove those things. Like so coming, like, there's people that work in this department and in communications that maybe don't even have a degree yet. It's their personality, it's their worth ethic, there's other things that kind of help them get there. So not that I'm not putting emphasis on it or anything like that, but that was just something that always stuck with me, because it kind of, again, it sets you apart when people, a recruiter or hirer, is looking at your resume. Most of the time it's going to lead off with education. So when you see one that maybe leads off with work experience, you kind of catch their eye that way. So that it's just something that's always stuck with me, and try and pass that on to people, who are next up doing the same thing.
Man, that's gold. And for a couple of reasons. I think the first thing that you said that really, if I ruled the world, and this is as a teacher, there would be no grades. I think we get really hung up on grades. That would maybe be a follow-up questions, like if you're telling me in your resume you're even putting your education like out of the way. And again, like I love my job. I think college can be a useful place. I don't think it's a useful place because of the grades you get, right? But rather like the experiences you can accrue. Um, so I'm glad you said that, even though it's easy for me to say, like, but people stress about their grades all the time. Um, but I think you're right. It's like getting involved and doing things because, the perennial problem of the new graduate is they want experience, but you don't have any. But there are a lot of ways to get that experience, and that's kind of what I hear you saying, and that's really important advice from my perspective.
Yeah, and it's like I feel like a lot of what I'm kind of saying, and a lot of, even when I looked at these, questions to prep, like a lot of my answer came like, get real world hands-on experience. And like, not that it doesn't matter how you do it, but like, again, you just said it, once you graduate, it's like they almost want you to have a job before you get your first job. So that's impossible. So yeah, just try and get out there, and it doesn't even have to be a job. Like I said, let's get involved with things on campus. And there's some pretty legit things that, like, the radio station was legit. And again, I that was just something I was involved in, so I'm speaking on it. But like, you can make it your own. So just get involved, and there's so many different things out there. So if you're, and then that'll open the door to an internship, which would open the door to another internship, so that come graduation you already kind of have your little body of work to then present for your first job. So yeah, just get involved. It doesn't matter what you get involved in, just get out there. And if you don't like it, then at least you tried it. But just give it a shot.
Yeah. The next question I have for you, you may have answered already, so you can do this quickly or just say, yeah, I kind of
Sure.
already did. But what are 2 to 3 experiences, and this could be interpreted a lot of ways, 2 or 3 experiences um, that students should engage in while in college to help prepare for something in your field upon entering graduation?
I mean, yeah, I feel like, again, it's going to bring me back to just get involved, whether it's an internship or something that's
Yeah.
um there on campus. But honestly, the other thing too that I feel like I didn't realize until I was sitting in the interview, and then it hit me, is some of these classes, whether it be your comm classes or it be other classes that might be related to communications that you can take, like an elective or something. Sometimes you'll hear the professor say like, oh, you can use this in an interview. And I remember sitting in there thinking, how am I ever going to use this in an interview? It's a class. And then once you look back on it and you kind of see the work you did, and the things you were a part of and what you got done, it speaks for itself. Like it was an experience. And that was the whole point of it, is that you can talk about it, because again, maybe it's not a work experience, but it's the work you put into that class and kind of the result that came of it. I mean, I remember taking entertainment marketing. Obviously I was minored in that, so I had to take that. But anyone that's interested in just music or just getting involved in entertainment in general, like, I really urge you to take that class. It was with Dr. Burkhalter. I don't know if she still teaches it, but I mean, the whole concept of it was to put on a benefit concert, and you had to budget and, work with your team and get venues and promote it and, come up with promotional materials, and you have to book acts and get sponsors. And it was like literally all things you do in a real job. That like that one definitely like goes a long way, and just taking that will kind of intro you to maybe like, real world kind of work experience. It was a great class. And even another one that I guess another tip then that I'll urge is like take a class that maybe interests you, and maybe it seems challenging or like you're not too sure about it, but if it, counts for something, then take it. I remember I had to take entertainment law, and I was like, I'm the last guy who wants to be a lawyer or, do legal work, but it was like an eye-opening course, and just it was like really interesting and like thought-provoking. And again, I went into that thinking this is going to be the worst class ever, and it was pretty awesome. And another one was even news reporting. I'm just throwing these all out there because news reporting was a class where every week you had to basically act as a journalist, come up with a story. It's kind of similar, Dr. Hammer, to your class with Hawk Chill, like your comm intro. But again, it's like little things that you'll take with you like the rest of your college career and into any job, is going out and talking to people and asking questions, and kind of you have to put the work in to get that end result. And your professor or your group, whoever you work with, will know if you did it or not. And it's the same in a job. Like you have to show you kind of care and put yourself out there, and just take risks. So try and find a class that maybe counts for something and seems a little challenging, but I think it'll go a long way. And again, you could take that with you in an interview or just in a job. And I don't know, you just never know what's going to come from it. But yeah, I just like thinking about that, like, classes too. That's why you're there. They go a long way.
Mhm. Yeah, related to that, my next question is maybe even more about comm, or like, are there any courses, and these could be the basic courses or any special topics courses that were helpful for you, that you found some kind of direct or maybe indirect application in terms of preparation for the job market?
I mean, entertainment marketing to me, that was the one. And again, because you were literally planning a concert and then doing like basic budgeting and promotion, and even you had to like design, materials and things like that, and call venues. So it was all things that you do in a normal job if you worked for an artist, or if you worked for any company, those are important skills to have. So that one was great. I mean, again, from a comm standpoint, I mean, I took two, again, the names of the courses are kind of escaping me, but one was with Dr. Knight and one was with um, Sullivan, and they're both like graphic design courses. And
Mhm.
I use Photoshop in my job daily, and making these promotional materials that will send to radio. And it's not a skill that I need, but it helps to know it, and I know it because I took those classes. And I wasn't an art major or design major, but it's just a good skill to have. And even in other comm classes you take, I don't know if we used it in your class, Dr. Hammer, but knowing how to use Premiere and Audition and things like that. Like today I did 2 interviews with 2 artists and a dozen radio stations, and I'll have to chop them up and edit them in Audition and Premiere, and I know how to do that. I came into this role knowing how to do that. So again, little things like that, you might not realize it, but there's people that I've worked with that don't know how to do that. And again, it's not a requirement, but it helps. So all that's, all of those skills set you apart. So, and a lot of that did come from the comm major. It was about chopping up and creating media, and you do a lot of that with the Adobe suites. And then even, in Bill Wolf's class where you have to code your own website, like it's just all good skills to know, just using tech and being familiar with these platforms, because most of communications, careers are going to probably deal with those things. So it's just good to know and kind of keep in the back of your head, because that was about probably 5 years ago for me when I took most of those classes, and it's as if I just took it yesterday that I still know how to use them. So yeah, honestly, a lot of what you do in the comm program, just you won't realize it, but you'll just apply it to most of your careers afterwards, if you stay in communications.
That's really helpful to know, Noah. Like, and I think it depends what kind of work you're doing and where you're doing it and what's maybe size of company and aim of company. But I always, even this department, we sometimes go back and forth on like which programs should we teach. You're finding Adobe a lot in your roles. Like, have you found those to be pretty consistent in your jobs?
Y- Yeah, I mean, it's, in my 2.5 years here, like Photoshop, I use definitely weekly, if not daily. And
Mm-hmm.
just knowing how to, we'll cut up audio to send to radio stations. Like if an artist does an intro, if they do an interview, and knowing how to edit that and do it in Premiere or Audition, depending on what you get, if it's video or audio, it's just good to know. And again, it's not a requirement, but when I told people in my department that I knew how to do that, it was definitely like a bonus. So, and honestly, like I like doing it then. I like doing it now. It's just a change of pace from maybe, making a report or looking at numbers. It's just a different, way of promoting and working. So yeah, no, those skills have gone a long way.
Cool. And that's more of a selfish question. So is this my next question, which you're not ready for, but like, are there any programs or sort of like more technical skills that you've sort of had to learn on the job?
Totally.
Whether
Yeah.
it's like software or hardware?
Totally. Not so much hardware, but software, at least in our department, again, because we deal with radio. There's two services. One is specific to radio, and one's kind of just specific to music in general. One's called Media Base, and we use that. That's like the end all be all for charts, and where your
Mhm.
song is on the chart, how it's moving, how many spins it has, and that was something that interning on the radio side I was familiar with, but not until I really started here did I had to start from square one. And now it's as if I've always known it, but it was not something I knew prior to this. But like anything, you just have to kind of you pick it up, you practice it, and you'll adapt. But that's a big one because I use that literally every day, and that's like what our department really, that's like the number one. So yeah, it was something I didn't know, but obviously now I know. And then the other is a service called Music Connect. They're associated with Nielsen now, and that's used to track and gauge, how many times a song is streamed and how many things times a song is sold and sales. So like digital streaming and sales, and charts to see which song is played the most just based off user consumption. So Apple, Spotify, Amazon, all of that. But again, just learning how to read those charts and pull those numbers. It's what I do every day in this role, and it's kind of that numbers side that helps then put the event side in action. But it's definitely like the basis of what we do. So yeah, those are two major programs that I was not too familiar with coming into this role, but you know, picked them up pretty quickly, and it's the rest is history. So yeah, but again, like stepping in, and it's not something that you'll learn in the college course because it's kind of obscure, pretty niche to this role. There's people in this company that don't use each of those. So it's just something that kind of comes with the territory. But like anything, if you're open to learn and you put the work in, like you'll pick it up. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think even just having experience of learning new softwares and complex softwares, I think you can make the case in an interview or in that kind of situation that like, hey, I'm able to pick up these complex things, particularly in terms of software, and find something that's similar enough to what you're thinking about that you can make that case. Um,
Exactly. Yeah. I
uh,
mean, again, that's like something that you don't know, like you don't even think about because you just do it. But it's some like I was saying that about some of these classes, like you have no choice but to learn it. But then when you look back, it's like, oh, I could use that in an interview. So exactly.
mhm. Um, you've answered so many questions in some of your other questions. You've been really thorough. One that we haven't maybe talked as much about. I know students are, what year are you all? Junior, sophomore, junior, senior? Holy seniors. Okay. They're getting the anxiety, I think, already, these
The home
seniors and
stretch.
yeah. Um, so how about like, can you talk to us maybe a little bit about interviewing and networking? And those are pretty separate things, right? One, networking is maybe like just getting out there and maybe making some connections with other people in industry. I think part of that is probably the internship stuff and maybe job stuff, getting to know people, and maybe interviewing is a separate thing. So maybe can you first talk a little bit about like networking tips? Did you get a chance to meet anybody or get connections or learn about jobs or ask people about jobs before you applied? Any networking tips?
Yeah, totally. So I guess the first one, and again, for you seniors that are counting down, make use of whoever's coming through to speak at St. Joe's. I remember in Mandeville, there was always a bulletin board with, you know, guest speaker, coming in this week from wherever, and most of them weren't, I feel like, too relevant to communications, but every now and then, like, there would be somebody from like a production company or a record label or something that would catch my eye at least. And make use of that because they're being dealt to you where once you graduate you're gonna have to chase everybody. So just keep an eye out and just see if anybody's coming through because you know listening to them talk and then giving them some time afterward to shake their hand and pick their brain goes a long way. So that's really just for you that are still kind of on campus. But just going forward, I feel like everyone in that room, obviously, you all grew up with social media, and LinkedIn is literally just professional social media. So take advantage of like try and look up people, whether they're alumni or not. They don't have to be alumni. I would look up people at companies I was interested in applying to, and in that those departments, I didn't know who they were, but I would send them a note on LinkedIn. I had like the free trial of LinkedIn Premium, and those 30 days I was sending out notes each day to a bunch of people, and most of the time, like maybe they don't write back, but sometimes they will, and then you can set up an informational, or maybe you send them your resume, and if something opens up, you never know, somebody might want to help you out because most of the time I think they will. At least most of the time they want to talk to you and kind of tell you who they are, what they do, and how they got there, kind of like what I'm doing now. So just don't, again, like just go for it. Really use LinkedIn because it's all like right at your fingertips. And it's so easy just to send someone like a pretty friendly note, tell them your story, who you are, and just send them your resume. And if they write back, then it's awesome. If not, again, the worst they could say is no, but I don't think that that's going to happen. So, yeah, just really like try and use LinkedIn because looking for a job from somebody that graduated and I didn't have anything lined up. So looking for a job, full-time job is a full-time job in itself. And so, definitely put the work in, and it's so easy like to do. So don't be intimidated if you don't know somebody. You just have to go for it. And again, I think eventually you'll get a couple people that might bite, and then you just pick their brain, and you never know who's going to end up somewhere. Funny enough, when I was in entertainment marketing, we had guest speakers come through a bunch, and one of them was currently at RCA, which is a division of Sony. And afterwards, I went up, spoke to her, and she had only graduated. I didn't know who she was. She graduated before my time. But funny enough, my sister had actually interned at RCA, and the two of them knew each other. So we exchanged information, and that was somebody that I kind of just tried to stay in touch with. Funny enough, I applied for a job at RCA and never heard back, but I had sent her a note just, to let her know, hey, I applied for this, just wanted to give you a heads up. When I started interviewing for Atlantic, I think I interviewed like 4 times or 4 rounds. And maybe during the second round, she wrote back to me months later and said, hey, I'm not with RCA anymore. I actually work for Atlantic. And I was like, wow, that's really good timing. And so, I gave her a heads up. And obviously, I'm here now. I don't know if she had any, thing to do with it or if she was able to put in a good word. But regardless, you just never know where people are going to end up. So, send them a note, give them your info, give them your resume, and it might come back to help you or do something for you. So in terms of networking, again, just try and set up informationals and calls and just reach out to people because that's how you build your network. And just don't be intimidated because most of the time people are going to want to try and help somebody that's new and kind of looking to get their career started.
It's a small world after all, right?
Yeah, that's what you learn pretty fast.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. I have a story a lot like that. At St. Joe's, when we hire new faculty, we all have to agree on who moves on to the first round of an interview, like all the faculty members on the committee, except if one of us, so we have to have consensus on who moves to the first round, except each one of us gets like, we call it a wild card. I shouldn't, well, no, I can tell these stories, right? So like if there's somebody in the pool that I'm like, I believe in this person's work, nobody else likes them, I get to bring them along. When I got hired, I was somebody's wild card. Only one person liked my stuff out of the staff. And thank goodness. And I had met, he's not here anymore, but I had met him at conferences and I'd given talks where I knew he was in the audience and stuff. And so that, I mean, that my experience probably echoes yours, right? Get out there, do stuff, meet people, and then just play the numbers game, man.
Yeah, I mean, at
And
the end of
hope.
the day, like, you know, you're gonna get no a lot more than you're gonna get yes, but
Mhm.
you're still gonna get yes. So, you know, but it only happens if you put in some work and you know, just put it out there. So again, it's unless you're really, really lucky, it's not gonna come to you. So you definitely gotta be the one to kind of make that first contact, and then, you know, who knows?
So you said in your last answer, you said 4 rounds of interviews.
Yeah, I
Can you talk about
interviewed.
that?
I know, yeah, I interviewed. I mean, the first one was more, I guess, of I feel like the first. No, I mean each round it was a true interview. I mean, one most of the time, like for a big company too,
Mhm.
you'll interview with like the HR team just to kind of get over that first barrier, and then you know then from that point forward, you kind of just interview from within that department. And yeah, I know four at the time, I was like, it seemed like a lot, but in the end, it paid off. So I think
Right.
out of all the things that I applied for, that was the most lengthy, but you know, it ended up working out. So um, yeah, but you know, each time, you know, it's also, you know, you treat each round like it's the first time. You can't just ever get comfortable and almost you can't be like, oh, it's the third interview, like I've got this. It's like there's probably a bunch of other people that have the third interview too. So yeah, you know, you just got to bring it each time, which I guess kind of segues more into the actual process of interviewing. But which I mean, if you want me just to jump in with some stuff there too,
Yeah,
um
please.
like honestly, the big thing that I'll say for interviewing is do your homework. Before you
Mm.
get into that first interview, you just want to come prepared again, whether it's the first one or the third one. Do your homework and come prepared with things that you can just talk on about the company that you're applying for, because you should know who you want to work for so that they know you want to work for them. I mean, like things that I would always look at was like who's the current CEO, who's the founder, maybe when was it founded, you know, current events, is the company in the news for any reason that you can it shows that you're paying attention, you're up on things. You know, showing that you've already done some work and effort to try and get the job is kind of a good sign that you'll do work and effort if you get the job. So just come prepared, because it makes a big difference. Like if you could say something, especially something that's like relevant too, if it's like timely, you know, it's a good way to kind of set yourself apart, maybe turn some heads, and you know, it shows that you care. Um, and then, you know, just with that of doing your homework, practice who you are. Like, know who your brand is, because usually in an interview, the first question, you know, they'll be like, "So, tell me about you." And I feel like a lot of people never think about that until somebody else asks them that. And then the last thing you want to do is start, you know, and stuttering over yourself. You know, if you can't talk about yourself and promote yourself, that should be the easiest thing for you to talk about. So you know, it sounds so easy until, like, you know, anyone in there, you should try for 10 minutes just to verbally pitch yourself and talk about your brand. And it's a lot harder than you think. You know, we have a current intern, and she had to do it for like some sort of intern, I don't know, building requirement, some challenge they had. And she was like, yeah, like they asked me that and I didn't know what to say. And I was like, yeah, like you don't think about that until you are asked that, and then you kind of get put on the spot. So you know, for you seniors too, right now you're a student. When you're applying for a job, you're no longer a student. So just kind of, you know, always keep that in mind. The same way you update your written resume, just kind of update your verbal resume. And again, I like to bet that that's probably the first question you'll get asked in an interview. So again, it's something that you kind of, some of us learn along the way, but it's a good thing to have in your back pocket, because it'll just start you off on the right foot.
Toughest interview question that you can remember?
I'm trying to think out of everything. I mean, a good one. I mean, honestly, I'd like to say I was prepared for it, but it was tough. Was, they're like, especially in promotion, our whole job is turning no's into yeses. So they were like, give us an example of a time you turned a no into a yes. And I had to think about it, but I ended up having something from a class experience that helped, like an academic standpoint, and something from like a work related internship standpoint. So
Mhm.
it was definitely something though that like I still think back to that question because I think back to the answers I gave and looking back at it, it was again, it was kind of like a good moment in that interview that I think went a long way. But it's definitely like that's a tough one because a lot of people like maybe don't think about a challenge you had to overcome or something like that. But yeah, turning a no into a yes, and that's a question now that I still use when we interview interns or help interview people. So yeah, it's definitely one that stuck with me for sure. So I think I'd give it to that.
All right, my last question before maybe turning it over to folks in Zoom and in their classroom. So maybe this
Sure.
is a good time to think about any questions you have for Noah. Um, um, my last question isn't on the list we gave you, so if I'm catching you off guard a little bit here too.
Sure.
But maybe like, and this is funny to do maybe on a career day, but what's some non-career advice for like that moment when people are moving from being a student to thinking about not being it anymore and transitioning into like whatever this life thing that happens after college? Do you have any like non-career career advice or some maybe out there living advice?
Yeah, I guess like this might apply to just yeah, this kind of both, honestly. Just take it for whatever. Don't really worry about what people are doing around you. And just think about what is best for yourself and what you want to do. When I graduated, I lived with 7 other guys, of which I think all 7 already had jobs lined up, and I wasn't too worried. I mean, I could have been like, why am I the only one that doesn't currently have a job? But I knew I'd find something. I knew it was just a matter of finding the right fit and timing, and it worked out. And just in anything, don't worry about what the person next to you is doing. Don't compare yourself to them. Don't base yourself off them. Just stay on your own course, and it's usually going to work out. Um, yeah, I think just that's just an important thing. Like just worry about being you, and usually that's what works out. Because if you fake it and try and be someone else, or if you constantly compare yourself to other people, um, it might be good for a little bit, but eventually it's not gonna carry you. As if just be yourself. Like honestly, like just that's all I got.
Yeah, man, that reminds me. I was at a conference last week, and I've been out of college 10 years now and here for about 10 years. And so I was catching up with some people that like I was going to grad school with. And like we were talking about like be careful what you think you want. Do you know what I'm saying? Like what we all thought we wanted when we were getting ready to graduate and get our PhDs, the kind of jobs that we thought we wanted. Um, and I'll be like straight up. There's a job I really wanted, and it wasn't St. Joe's. And St. Joe's is the one I got. And I wasn't disappointed, but like that was the one I thought I really wanted. Um, the people who went and took that job, they've gone through 3 people now, and nobody liked it there. Right. So like I think to some extent too, I would say like my career advice, even though nobody's asking for it directly, is like you um I'm really glad I didn't get everything I wanted when I was 25 years old. Does that make sense? Like all the things that I thought were really, really important and the things that I wanted, they turned out to be a little different. And we're all gonna find that all that stuff out the hard way anyway. But I think you're exactly right. Like being true to not like the job that I think my parents want me to have, or that I think my advisor or that my mentor wants me to have, but the job and the place that's right for who I am and what I want. So that's wonderful advice, Noah. Be like, know yourself, number one, and then maybe have also the courage to do follow that.
Yeah, because I
So
mean,
maybe I'll
if you fake it in an interview, they're gonna know. And then even if you get the job, you're probably not gonna like that job because you faked it and it's a
Mhm.
fake, like it's just it
Yeah,
won't end well. So yeah, just stay true to yourself and do what's right for you. It'll work out.
for sure, for sure. Cool. I want to open it up for questions. Folks in here, certainly folks on Zoom. I'm going to step up for just one. Scott, do you want to handle Q&A here?
No, you're great handling Q&A, especially with your class there. I actually wanted to ask a follow-up to what was just discussed. Um, so Noah, one, your advice today has been so spot on, and coming from a career services side of things, like there's so many things you said that I was like, okay, we're bookmarking that and we're going to show it to students. So I appreciate it. Um, Going into the field that you went into, and like even with 7 roommates who had jobs, like yesterday some of them were accounting students and business students and all of that. So
All of them.
okay, so right, so they're very different in how that happens. But can you talk about wanting to get into a field like this, and what was the pull to maybe a field that wasn't entertainment or wasn't how did you stay true to like, I'm going to see this out, I'm going to let it take time? And also, can you talk about support that you were getting either from family or those around you, that allowed you to take that time and get into this position?
Sure. Yeah. Honestly, I mean, in my roommates, everybody was business. I was in a fraternity when I was at St. Joe's. I think I was the only communications major, so I was always kind of the odd man out there, but it's what I liked, and I just couldn't see myself doing anything else. Like I just couldn't be, business was like marketing was the closest thing I was going to get to business. So, and honestly, like, yeah, support from family. I think it really just comes from like how I was raised. Both my parents worked in entertainment. My mom was a publicist. My dad is a cartoonist. So, that's, pretty unconventional job, but, the two of them stayed their courses and ended up doing all right. So they kind of just passed that on to me, and just I followed what I liked, and it's working out so far. So yeah, I definitely started at home, and I guess I'm lucky for that too, that both my parents were in different fields of entertainment, and at least my mother was communications. So I kind of grew up with that's all I know. But even though I was around other people, then as I'm coming up as myself, never once did I ever think, oh, maybe I should switch and do what everybody else is doing. Like it I just it wasn't an option.
That's great. Thank you. That's insightful and helpful.
That's really helpful. We talk a lot about that in comm and in some other majors too. And at one point, and by talk about that, I mean talk about like, I think there's a perception that some majors are like more gonna get you a jobby than other majors, right? And I know some parents get really nervous about some majors. Like I dropped out of college once because I was going to go to recording engineering school, and my parents like we had this big thing, and they're like, "You're never going to get a job." But um, but they didn't come from that kind of background where they were like, "You can actually do what you want." And I went for 5 more years as an undergrad studying things that I thought would get me a job, and I was miserable. And I had like a 2.1 GPA maybe, right? So I think there's a lot to be said for like doing what you actually want to do, and you can make that work. That's a harder sell, I think, to some people who feel like maybe a little bit more afraid or don't have experience working in like more creative industries. But that's why I think like mentoring and networking can be so useful too. So that was a great question, Scott, that we think a lot about in comm.
What is it like to work for Atlantic Records?
It is it's awesome. I mean, it's exactly what I wanted. I had previous experience on the radio side doing promotion, and when it came time to go full time, I kind of wanted something that maybe was a little bit of a wider scope. So now working for Atlantic, you work along, it's one big machine that it takes everybody. It's one big team. So, our promotion department can't work by itself. We have to work with the streaming department and the publicity department and the marketing department and the video department, kind of all the dominoes just start knocking each other over, and just being able to collaborate and work with them, and then really, and the product we sell, and what we talk about is music, and that's always been my passion. So it's exactly what I could have hoped it would be. And that in the beginning we talked about having a day-to-day, and sure, there's some things that I pull and I look at and I do the same every day, but for the most part, no 2 days are alike, and that keeps your job really interesting. So I'm lucky that I don't get redundant or bored in what I do. And it just keeps it new and exciting. I mean, I feel like I graduated yesterday, and now I'm going on 3 years here, and each day and each week is something new. So it's just it's awesome. So yeah, it's been a pretty good ride so far.
Thanks.
I
Anyone
know
else?
some folks are in Dr. Hammer's class, certainly asking questions works. Also, those of you that are just joining us on Zoom, you can use the chat or just take yourself off mute and ask away. Looks like Amanda.
Hi. Yeah, I was gonna say sorry. I don't know if you have to like call on me or not. So first of all, Burkhalter is still there teaching event marketing. She's awesome. I had her too. But my question for you, I asked this in another session too, is what do you think when you were applying for jobs, what do you think it was that really set you apart from other candidates? Like, was it more like personality, knowing the business, being excited for it, or was it something more tangible? Like, did you get like your master's? Do you have any certificates, like something like that?
No, I just graduated like most with, bachelor's communications, and again, I said it a lot, but like interning and work experience, like I just like those are the skills and the things that when somebody looks at your resume, like it, again, at least from a written perspective, because that can only say so much, but it at least kind of set the tone of who you are and what you've done, and then you kind of have to back it up yourself in the interview. So which I guess just goes along to, again, doing your homework, putting yourself out there, and just reaching out to people. And another thing I guess too that I could mention is even just following up after an interview, just a simple thank you, something like that, goes a long way. Maybe people forget to do that, or they don't think to do that. So you just want to try and check all the boxes. And even what Dr. Hammer said, you can do everything right, and maybe it's just not your day. Maybe they pick somebody else. But if you keep doing everything right and you keep applying, eventually something's gonna hook up and work out. So I don't think I think it was just a mix of everything. I was a good student at St. Joe's, but I wasn't top of class or anything like that. But I think it was a mix of just that spoke for itself, and I had internships in the field that I wanted to go into. Maybe it wasn't the exact thing. It just so happened to be. I ended up kind of figuring it out and saying, yeah, maybe this is for me. But I think it was all of that mixed together, and then yeah, just being able to talk on what you've done. I think just like knowing, again, like knowing your brand and who you are, and being able to tell that to somebody goes a long way. Again, like you're your own biggest fan, so try and just really build your brand so that then you can sell your brand. And I think that's kind of what I did, and I guess it makes sense because that's what promotions is all about. So but yeah, I don't think there was one thing. I just, again, if I had to pick one, I would just say work experience and internships. Like I got after it early, and I think it paid off. So I know for seniors, sometimes that's scary to hear because you're running out of time, but it's never too late to get involved with something, or just try and get something, even if it's like a part-time gig. Just just get something, anything. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah, that definitely did. Thank you.
Can I real quick just reiterate something that Noah said earlier? Noah, you said that you took the free month of LinkedIn Premium,
Yeah.
which is a tip that we will give, but I'm not sure that I've had a student tell me that they actually did it. And it's a fantastic tip, especially I think when you're going into a field where networking is going to be so important. It will give you much better access to the people who you can find on LinkedIn, and even people in the St. Joe's network on LinkedIn. It will give you better access to them. So it is free. They give it to you for a month, but even then, it's probably worth paying for if you're still in your search. But that was fantastic advice.
Again, it's free. Yeah. And like, just to try and put yourself out there, like, and get in their inbox or try and get your name just on their screen for free. Like, yeah, I was like, why not? And again, you only have it for like a month, so you definitely have to get after it and make good use of it. But yeah, it's right there. So, and again, it's professional social media, and you guys grew up with social media, as did I. So it's not like we don't know how to use it.
We got a question over here.
Hi. So I'm a senior, and I've been applying to jobs, and I wanted to ask about the qualifications jobs list on like their listings. So I was just wondering, like, 'cause there's jobs that I'm interested in, but I may not have like all the experience. I may not have like proof of it or anything. So I was just wondering, like is that like, can I keep like pursuing that, or is like, how much does that matter, basically?
Yeah, I think it definitely matters to a certain extent. I mean, there were, like Dr. Hammer had asked me, are there any softwares or programs that you didn't know coming into your job? And two of the biggest ones that I use in my day-to-day, every day, I didn't know what they were or how to use them. But it was something that, like, again, I think a lot of people too, it depends. I think it depends, but I don't think anybody majors in radio promotion. So for me, it was okay to kind of learn those things on the fly and as I went. So I think it depends, if you're going to be a rocket scientist, I would hope you know how to put a rocket in space. But I think for the most part in communications, there's a lot of things you can learn on the fly, and a lot of things. That's why I kind of keep stressing it is, communications it's listed as a course, and you learn a lot of skills, but like sometimes the things that you do in your role you can't teach in a classroom. So you can apply the skills you've learned to then get the job and then learn it as you go. So I wouldn't let it deter you from applying or trying to get a job. But if it's something that's obviously like make or break, you need to know this, then I'd take that into account. But for the most part, I think that you can learn as you go. And if you're a quick learner, if you're a fast learner, it'll be just fine. So yeah, I wouldn't let it stop you unless it's like something that is the job.
Awesome. Thank you.
Can I add just one thing to that? I know we had an alum earlier today who literally said, apply, apply, apply. And if you apply, only two bad things are going to happen. Either you're going to be ghosted, which will happen sometimes, or you're going to get a no. After that, you're either going to get a reply or an interview. So if you don't apply, it's not going to happen. And there's also some statistics out there that college students look for about an 80% tipping point in position descriptions, where if they don't have 80% of what's required, they won't apply. Where once you start working, you realize it's probably a 50% tipping point. So, when you look at that position description, if you have enough there that you might be considered, you got to apply for it, because the only guarantee is if you don't apply, you're not getting it. So, yeah.
That 80-50, that's really interesting, Scott. I'm glad you asked that, Jonathan, right? Because I think sometimes, like, I remember when I first started going out, it was like, if it was on, if I didn't have it and it was on there, I was like, this isn't for me, this isn't for me. But yeah, the longer you're around, the more you're like, yeah, when the more people you see put job ads together, you're like, yeah, these are all the things we want, we need, whatever. But ultimately, and what really helped me when I was on the job market is like, especially at the interviewing stage, my mentors told me, if once you get to the interview stage, like it's assumed that you're like borderline competent, right? It's like, do they want to have lunch with you, right? Like, and so you don't want to go and like and be totally just like buddy buddy, but you don't have to, you can drop some of the insecurities of like, do I belong here? And then it's more just like, will you be a good colleague? And I think that's a big part of interviewing too, is not necessarily being liked, but making people understand that like you will be helpful to work with, like you will do what you do and so on. Cool.
Absolutely. I love that. And also to the students in the room, remember, you have 1 to 2 years experience. If you have internships, you have classwork, you have all that stuff. You know, a position that says 2 to 3 or 3 to 5, they're probably looking for somebody going into their second job. But but you know, 1 to 2 years experience, that like all the things that you've done while you're in school, that counts. So, you know, make sure that when you're looking, you keep that in mind.
Oh, come on up. We've got another one in room here.
Sure.
Hi, I'm a senior too, but I'm also passionate about music. So I just wanted to know if you maybe like have any advice on like how to make yourself like seem like um a good candidate for a job like you have, because the role that you have is like something that like is definitely like one of like my dream roles to have. So I guess just like, do you have any advice on how to make yourself seem like a good candidate for that kind of job?
Yeah, and again, if you're like specifically applying for music um jobs or roles, I remember I put like a section on my resume of like that I think I play music, and I listed what I play, and that I guess a genre of the fans are a fan of the certain genres, and I'm a big like music festival guy, so like I would list some of that. And again, I didn't put it with the core of my resume, but just kind of putting it somewhere to show my musical interests too. Like I think it definitely helps, and for anyone looking at it, it's just something else to kind of think about and consider. So yeah, I think you can put things like that, if you're whether you play music or you're a fan, or to kind of find your angle of how you want to approach it. And yeah, you could carve out like a section of your resume and maybe put that on there too. But again, I would only do that if you're looking for certain jobs that are, specifically in music. But yeah, like and again, just involvement, St. Joe's offers so many things that have to do with music in and out of the classroom, that I think it's an easy way to kind of start building that experience, and just kind of start to show on that side too that you're a fan of music, both kind of like as a hobby, and then as something a little more like serious too. So yeah, I hope that kind of helps there. But I remember putting a section on my resume that I played music, and I listed like the instruments I play, festivals I've been to, and other things kind of related to that. Keeping it light and kind of putting it toward the bottom, but definitely making people that might be reading it aware that I am passionate about music.
Thank you.
And as an update, Noah, and to anybody in here who is music leaning, the label's getting fired back up again. I think it was dormant for a little while, but one of my mentees is getting it fired up again.
Wow.
So
That's
if anybody
awesome.
wants to get connected with that, let me know. I can.
And again, yeah, like whether you care about music or not, it's a real thing to be a part of. And if somebody asks you about it in an interview, it's just good professional experience to talk about, whether you're trying to go for music or just something in communications or marketing or whatever. Like there's so many different things. There's people that work in my industry, in my department, that might not be like super passionate about music, but like they like promotion, or they like finance, or they like accounting. It just so happens to be that we work in music. But yeah, like get involved in things that music is just kind of like the lens, or the filter that it's on. The same way it could be sports or art or anything. Just kind of strip it down to maybe it's just good work, or the role is something you're interested in and just so happens to be in music. So that's awesome that they're getting that going, because it's so unique. Like, again, I don't really know many campuses, especially ones the size of St. Joe's, that have student run record label. That's pretty, pretty credible, and they take it seriously. At least they did when I was there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, that's the takeaway. And one thing I always try to advise people of, just to echo, I think the takeaway of Noah's advice for us today, I think, or at least the stuff that I try to pass on and that I'm really grateful you're reinforcing, is like, do stuff, right? Sometimes it's like, I'm here to get a degree, and like, even when when y'all do projects and I'm like, and I get mad at you when you call it like COM 203 project, like, give it a title. It can stand on its own. Like, even though this is for credit and it's at a campus, like, you're doing things. And I think the more you frame your stuff that you're doing now, whether it's an internship or even work projects that y'all are doing for clients for Instagram this semester, or organizations, like, that's experience, and you can talk about that and you can list that. It doesn't have to be a college class that you did. So like, give yourself more credit for all the work that you're doing here.
Totally.
No, I
And
feel
yeah,
like
that
I could ask you. Oh, yeah. No, go ahead. Sorry.
was there a question?
No, there wasn't. I was just
Oh,
wrapping a
no, I was just
bow
gonna say, no,
around. If you want to add.
that's exactly what I wanted to echo, is just, yeah, get involved. Just like, that's the best way to find out what you like and what you don't like, and just get involved and try things. And if you don't like it, then you can talk about it, and you did it, and it's experience. But like, you're not gonna, there's only so much you'll figure out or learn, like, just by taking classes and doing things like that. And then, yeah, also to Dr. Hammer's point, like, use those things you did in the classroom and talk about them. I think some of you, or a lot of you, might have like that aha moment in an interview about like, oh wait, that sounds like a project I did, or I definitely did. And again, I was like all of you, probably thinking, oh, I can't use this. This is just a class. So as much as you have to get out there and kind of try things for yourself, the work you're doing in the classroom can be used in the real world too. So yeah.
Well, hey, everybody, please join me in thanking Noah for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Noah.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm happy to be a part of this, and one of five, because people just today that were able to speak on this and hopefully offer some advice. I always found these things super helpful, so I hope some of you were able to take away something from this. And for those of you that maybe are still thinking on questions or anything, Scott, I don't know if I think I gave it to you, but feel free to link in with me. I try to stay active on there. And even Instagram, I think it's just my name, Noah Caruso. Feel free to connect on there too. Any questions or anything, just let me know. I'd be happy to hop on a call or shoot text or whatever. I like to help where I can, because I know I always appreciated it too.
Great. Well, thank you, Scott, for putting this together. Thank you, Noah, for being here. Thanks to everybody for showing up. Take care out there.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. Have a good night.
Too.